Well, I'm Tunde Adelakun. I am what people call Mr. African Football. I have spent about 30 years of my life covering in various aspects African football, watching the development and growth of the game, following it, and being committed to making sure that the best of African football comes out.
Hello and welcome to Obehi Podcast. I'm your host, Obehi A14, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
Having finished as assistant coach of the Nigerian national team, I decided to take a back step and reflect on myself and on my person and on the people around me, and decided that the mental part of the game and the mental part of human beings is not being looked into well enough, and I wanted to contribute my own part to it. Hence the formation and the starting of Tunde Talks as well, which is a platform through which we get people to talk to us, or I get to talk to people rather and listen to them as well on their mental challenges and how I can use my football life, my life in football, to relate with what they have gone through in the course of their lives.
You are looking at the mental aspect of the football, and that is very interesting. But I want to take a moment back and try to understand you a little bit better. So, were you born in UK or in Nigeria? Then you come to UK. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, I was born in London. I think people who know me, they know my history and my story. I was born in London many years ago, it seems now, and I was born in London. I spent my formative years in London and then went back, obviously, because I had no choice. My parents were going back to Nigeria, so I went back to Nigeria with them.
Mr. Tunde, do you like to tell me a little bit about your growing up in London? I think that is interesting for us, particularly for young people that are maybe listening to you now. They are interested also in the back story. Then, of course, we are moving into what you do currently. But tell us a bit about you growing up as a young adolescent in London.
I wouldn't say I got to adolescent years in London when I was growing, when I started, when I was quite young when I went to Nigeria. I was born in London. I stayed in London. I think I was about 6 or 7 when I went back to Nigeria. So not a lot to tell. I remember quite a lot, but they were all in bits, as you can imagine. When you're a 3, 4, 5-year-old, you don't remember everything, but you remember things in bits. It was a completely different setting in those days. It was a different setting. It was a different dynamics. People were different. I lived in London for some time, being thrown from one, because my dad came, God rest his soul, my dad came in on a scholarship to come and study in England. And he came and then brought my mum over a few months later on. There was 3 of us that were born in London. My eldest sister, my brother, number 2, and me, I was number 3. Then we had 3 others when we went back to Nigeria. So I was the youngest at the time, and he was working. My mum was also working and schooling. So most of the time they were throwing us all into the hands of nannies and daycare people. But we were supposed to be living with the nannies, and then at the weekend they come and pick us up. I was a bit of a mum and dad's boy. I never stayed. Every now and again, he would get a call to come and pick his son up because he's throwing tantrums, because he's crying all the time, because he needs mom and all that. That was how I grew up. That was me. I couldn't change that. Can't change it many years on now. And so, but what was different, having gone through it as a youngster and then having had kids of my own, now, what was different was that in those days, it was the norm for most working parents to actually go and dump their kids with nannies for days on end. And then at the weekend, they go and they visit the nanny and they pick their kids up and take them out for the weekend and then drop them back again on Sunday, and it was a cycle like that. When my parents' friends, contemporaries, when they sit together and they talk, it was what they were all doing. It was the norm. It was what they were all doing at the time. And then at some point, we had to move from London to Mansfield, which is in Nottinghamshire, up north, about 3 hours away from London. And we had to move there because my dad got a job at the valuation office of the Inland Revenue. And when he was there, there were not that many nannies anyway. The nannies were still in London because London was where the market was. And I wasn't staying. I was just not staying with nannies. And it was a big of a drag for them to actually come all the way from Mansfield after a hard day's slog at work, for them to be called to say, come and pick Tunde up because he's not settling. So at the end of the day, we went back to Mansfield, and then they got a living couple, an elderly couple, to come and live with us, looking after me, and later on my older siblings. They were fine. They were fine. They were okay. I wasn't. And they got the elderly couple to come and live with us, and they stayed. These things are not the norm anymore, because the world has become very, very dangerous. Is a sensitive.
What do you mean dangerous? Can you explain that?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't freely leave my kid in the hands of a nanny in this climate these days, when there's so much going on. There's so much crime. You hear about how, nannies shake babies to death. You hear about how they get maltreated and all that kind of stuff. You hear about the pedophilia, how young kids are sexually abused. I don't think we had any of that then. If we did, I was not aware of it. It was completely different. It was really different. There was more trust in the world of then than we had now.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. That is important. In fact, I was going to ask you what is the situation now, and see that was how you grew up then. But thank you for clarifying that. And of course, as we can see, the society sort of, I don't know if it is growing or degenerating. So it's not something that is happening only in Africa. It's all over. The sort of distrust that we now have in the system is affecting everything and everyone.
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's take some time to look a little bit about the youth, because we're going to be talking about football just now. And of course, this is something that is done by young people. So when you look at young people, particularly in England, okay, you are coming from Nigeria. I mean, your parents are coming from Nigeria. You have a direct route to the Nigerian society, as it were, but you are in UK. So when you look at the young people, particularly of African descent in the UK, what do you see in terms of the energy that they portray to the society?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, and it's a tricky one, because obviously, as you probably know, I've got my own children who are youth, who were born and raised over here, but who still have the African heritage in them. And what I see basically in the society that we live in at the moment is that there's a bit of a difference, a paradigm shift in mentality of the youth that we have today, as opposed to what we had in those days. And it's about striking a balance. In them days, you talk about young people who listen to their parents. How do they listen to their parents? What manner of respect do they show to their parents? What manner of obeisance do they show to their parents and to the wider family at large? And it's a bit different from what it used to be. In those days, even we talk about when we want to find excuses for something that, when my son or my daughter come to me and they tap me on the head and say, hey, Dad, what's up? And we're jokingly talking, I'm thinking, yeah, you guys, I would not dare do that to my father and all that. But the truth of the matter, and we say that, no, it's because you've been corrupted by the white man's mentality. But you think about it, even the white men in those days, the books that we were reading, the people that we were seeing, they had very good respect for Auntie Joyce, Uncle James. They had the respect was there, and they respected themselves as youth as against the uncles and the aunties and the teachers and the mentors that they had. So things have just changed and it's just blossomed and it's become completely different in a completely different way. Sometimes it's good because it shows a level of awareness of our people. But on the other hand, sometimes it can be a bit testing, and you just need to strike that balance in order to find a measure of where you place the youth in life.
That is very interesting. I also like how you started, no? Though the children that are born here in the West, they are growing up here, they have a sort of African heritage in there. That is very interesting. Um, anyway, I'm coming back to the youth just now, but I like to sort of stop a bit on the story that you were saying before when you were growing up in the UK, how this situation used to be, and now this is just one generation apart. In fact, you are a connection between your parents' generation and your children's generation. It's like the other day I was interviewing, I think the the president, I think is called, of the National Orientation Agency, Edo State. So we're talking about Nigeria, talking about the system, the political system, the society of Nigeria, what has changed. He was telling me how he benefited from the system. Of course, you know that most of the current crop of leaders in Nigeria benefited from almost like a kind of free education. And they are still here. They have not died, all of them. But they are not giving free education to the Nigerian people. I mean, what they have benefited from, they are not giving it out. Therefore, they are the ones that are ending the system. So if the system today is corrupt, it is corrupt in their hands. So where I'm actually trying to go here is that if we say the society has changed, and we have seen how it was then and how it is now, and we are sort of the connected dot, what does this say about us?
What it says about us is an absolute indictment of what we have contributed to the society. And I have to say that, hand on heart and with no doubt in conviction, we as the cord in between the older generation and the newer generation and the current crop, we haven't done well. That's a case in point. That's a fact. And if people are wondering why I say it because, by the time I got to Nigeria, we were just getting into or thereabouts the first of the Second Republic, it was called, of politicians. And I remember vividly that I came in at a time when people were looking at politicians and saying, wow, oh, wow. So they were doing this, they were doing that. Oh, you know what? By the time I got to GCSE or whatever age in Nigeria, everybody was thinking, we need to sweep out all these old people. And like, if there was a way that we can kill every 45-year-old upwards so that we can take over and correct the system because we felt that the system was wrong. We felt that the system was wrong. But you tell you what, the system was wrong when the pound was still 2 naira to 1 pound. All right? So we were there, trying to say that it can't have gone wrong if the right people were in the right places. These are our fathers and mothers. They didn't go to the right schools that taught them about integrity, credibility, and fair practice in governance. When we get there, with the education that they have spent their money teaching us and giving us, we can make things work because they haven't made it work. They haven't made it work. Now, what then happened is that gradually we started growing up. gradually, some of my contemporaries started getting into positions of authority, and they didn't correct the ills that their father figures did. They actually perfected and made their own more sophisticated, and therefore we now have, internet related fraud. They can now siphon money without anybody breaking sweat. I suppose in those days some of the older ones will physically carry bags of money. They don't do that anymore. They can do it by transfer, and it's okay. It's fine. So it means that we are not part. Number one, we took something from the older generation, and rather than make it right, correct it, and make it better, we got worse. We got better at doing it, because we're looking at the likes of those ones who were arrested and jailed for 82 years and 95 years in those days, in the early 1980s, mid 1980s. Governor of this state was jailed because he siphoned 2 million naira and all that. And we're looking at them. All of my contemporaries are looking at them and thinking, he was just not clever. We'd do it better. We'll steal 15 million and nobody's going to bat an eyelid. And they were doing it. And I know them because some of them were people with whom I grew. And you look at them and you look at what they've made of their lives at the moment, and you're thinking, what have they passed on down to the youth, to that next generation that you say we are in the middle of? Because we passed on a sophisticated, and now when you now look at the younger ones at the age of 22, 23, 24, 25, and where they're aiming for, you think that, well, heaven help me, I don't know what's going to become of the future of life, because they're even aiming higher, because they feel that they can even do it even better than their father. So we haven't done a good service to legacy in terms of credibility, in terms of honesty, in terms of reputation.
Thank you for that. I like your honesty, that we must hold ourselves accountable for the role that we play in our society, and therefore the society that is going to come, because we just cannot hide. My mother used to say, of course, she would say in my language, basically, she's saying that the good people are giving birth to the bad people. That is why we are still managing. By the time the bad people are giving birth to the bad people, then this world is completely spoiled.
Absolutely.
All right. Now, let's talk about the youth a little bit, because now we move to football. How are we supposed to make correction? Because now we have the youth. We sort of seem to be like, not all the time we really are sent, but we have an obligation to sort of pass on a legacy to this younger generation, because they are going to be the future leader. There is nothing we can do about that. They are going to be there, whether we like it or not. So for us, playing our role to straighten up the line for them a little bit is the minimum. What are we, this generation, supposed to do to correct an error?
Yeah, absolutely. And you've said it. I think in terms of what you've said has answered the question. It is leading by example. We need to lead by example. If we don't have a decent story to tell to our youth about what we are doing, how we're doing it, how we achieved it, then we have no legacy to pass on to them. Is the absolute truth. So the important thing is you always remember that we are not living this life for ourselves alone. We're living to pass a legacy to our children. And that's one thing that a lot of my contemporaries lose sight of. The truth of the matter is that you have to, everything that you do, you have to think about the fact that the youth are watching you, and what would you do if they were doing the same thing? And I'm not absolving myself of it. Otherwise, I'll probably be in the Vatican as a pope. So I'm not absolving myself of it. But the truth is, there are some who do a lot worse than others. If you do stuff that cannot correct or that is immoral, downright immoral in every way, shade, and form, how can you pass that legacy on to the youth and say, how can you give it as an example of what you do? They look at you. Everything that we do is a reflection of the society, is reflected back to the society. It's a reflection of the society coming from behind, and it reflects back into the society. Anything that we do in this world, any endeavor that we undertake on a daily basis is a reflection of the society.
That is true. So it's a mirror, sort of.
It's a two-pronged mirror. It's a mirror in front and mirror at the back. It's a mirror that carries what you do and passes it down for you to look at it again in the front and think, wow, okay, what will people say if I continue to do this? And I live my life as much as it's possible in a way that whatever it is that I do, the people that are connected to me will be able to sit back and think, I mean, he got here to wherever he is without having to do this, and that. So I can do it as well.
Thank you for that. Now, let's try to sort of understand one thing. Because you are dealing with the youth in most of the cases, because, okay, you're a coach, you are having this as one of the argument that you talk about all the time. What is the concern of the youth in terms of what they expect from the, let's call it the older generation, in terms of, okay, maybe they're supposed to show me this, they didn't tell me this. If you don't tell me, there is no way I can know what you don't tell me. I cannot know. I'm always just imagine. So what is the preoccupation of the youth, if we were to put it like that?
The preoccupation of the youth, most of the youth, what we tell them to do is to listen and observe and discern. You can't expect people to tell you everything because, let's face it, this world, especially in this current climate, is a rat race. Everybody is running. When I was in school, I was very restless. I attended Loyola College in Ibadan in Nigeria. And I remember there was I was a very restless kid. I was always running one way or the other from or away from somebody. And I know there was a teacher, one of my teachers in those days, he would, once I dash into, sometimes I get chased by people who have offended, they just run after me and I run into a class room and find that he's already there teaching, and I just look lost. So he now looks at me and he looks at me and says, Adelakun, you are one special character. If you're not running after somebody, then the rest of the class will take it. Somebody will be running after him. And so I was a little bit like that. And that is what the world has turned into today. It is a rat race. We are running after something, or something is running for us, and we've got to keep moving. So we probably don't have the presence of mind to engage our youth in everything that they need to know, number one. Number two, how do you know what they need to know? It's about discerning. It's about youth also learning from a very young age to take responsibility. So if there's any message you want to pass across to a young teenager, somebody who's just coming up at 12, 13 years old, it is start from a young age to take responsibility for your surroundings. Ask questions. If you don't ask, you're not going to know. Don't put it down to the fact that, this person's got to, that belongs to the school. This person's got to tell me. He did not tell me that I should watch out for cigarette smokers, so I've got to go smoke a cigarette. No, be discerning. Try to take responsibility for your surroundings. Ask questions. Speak. Find people to speak to. Make a friend. The only responsibility that we have that probably some of the parents that we had in those days didn't give to us was offer friendship, so that your door is always open for the youth to come and ask questions. You go sometimes, we know in our day, many years ago, when you can't go and sit down in front of daddy or mommy and ask a question without getting into trouble. Like, a simple question. How dare you ask me that? Boom, boom, boom. And then they get heated. We've got to provide a listening ear and answer questions. The only responsibility that we have got is to encourage, provide an open door. Let them come, let them ask. And when they ask, no question is ridiculous. No question is stupid. No question is how dare you. Just answer it. Just answer it. It's not a problem. Answer it. When you've answered, I have a fantastic, absolutely fantastic relationship with my children. My daughter is very, very witty, very sarcastic, very funny, and she can come up with the weirdest of questions, especially when she was young. And she can come up with any question. I will answer those questions. When she's satisfied herself, I can now turn around and say, but wait, where did you get that from? Why does your mind think like this? And then we can joke about it. But the very first thing I owe to her is answer the question. So provide an open door for the youth. Let them know that you are there to support, to listen, and to answer their questions. There's no rule book. You can't pick up a book and say, hey, here's a book on how to be a good child. And then you start talking. There's no book that, if there's books that wrote it and they sell it in the bookstore, they're just trying to get your money because you're not going to find it in the real world. But the only book of learning that you can give your children, your youth, not just your own child, but people who look up to you. Out there's hundreds and thousands of people who can benefit from the wealth of your experience, is provide an open door for them to come and ask questions. It's knowledge, it's experience. It can never go wrong.
Yeah, you're touching point that are really very interesting. Anyway, I don't want to expand on that because it's already rich on its own, and it's good to leave it the way it is there. Now, how do you use football to sort of influence children in building a kind of better society? Because now we look at football as a little round thing among the people where they just run around it, but they're not running around it zigzagly. There are rules, they are playing, there is a game. Uh, I want to believe that there are reasons behind the rules of the game. That is why we play it. So help me understand the role of football in what we are trying to impact the people.
Now, listen, I've studied it very carefully and I've looked at the game of football. When I started, when I came back into England and I started working with the BBC and with Sky Sports and that, even when I was here, even talking to the BBC producers and stuff, I say to them that, I can go to Africa and go and get you an interview with George Weah. And they look at George Weah and they think, no, you can't. How can you? George Weah, he's such a big player. And I'm thinking, to myself, he's a human being, for goodness sake. He's just like you and me. I'll just go and talk to him and say, I need an interview with you. And they marveled at it. So I will go and I will come back with the interview. One thing I have found is that for many, many years, people see football players, football stars, the football industry as a completely different world. It's completely different from it's not on the realm of reality. Oh no, these people, because they earn so much money, they are prima donnas. In fact, they're demigods. Okay, maybe they are, but in reality, they're human beings. The game of football itself is founded on an objective. The objective is, as this thing says here, is to get the ball. There's going to be 22 players. It's a game of 22 players. 22 players, 11 on each side. One will wear one color, the other wears another. And then there's a common round object. That's the ball. The objective of the football is that you've got to kick that round thing, pass it between yourselves, and make sure you get it into the other net, while at the same time preventing that same round ball from getting to the hands of the other team and getting into your own net. It's simple. It's an objective. So there is an objective to the game of football. In your case, you've got a double-pronged objective. You've got to go there and win by scoring more than you allow in the back into your own net. Life is exactly the same. This rat race that I talked about is exactly the same. You go into sales, you go into marketing, you go into medicine, you are preventing something bad from happening, while at the same time you are trying to make something good. You don't put a patient in hospital as a doctor. You don't put a patient in hospital and say, okay, you came in sick, let's get you back to zero. You want to make them better. You don't want to make them worse, which is conceding the goal at the back, but you want to make them better, which is scoring the goal. If it's in sales, for example, if you're working in sales as a young sales executive, you want to make sure that you don't deplete the resources of your company unnecessarily by going on mad, wild chases around as a salesman looking for something that you're not lost and going through expenses upon expenses, selling stuff. You want to actually sell. You don't also want to just sit down in one spot. So the ball keeps moving, and that's your ball. Your ball is your sales target. Breaching that sales target is scoring the goal. Spending too much money on unnecessary frivolities as a salesperson is conceding goals because you run at a deficit. So the football game, once you kind of come to understand that the mentality of the footballer is exactly the same as the mentality of everybody across the world, whatever it is you are doing, then you are on one good step towards becoming a success in yourself.
All right. Uh, okay, Mr. Tunde, I can see a lot of value in what you are saying, and I don't know how much we're going to be able to take from it because it's really highly, highly important. I am not a football expert, but I look at it like a game. The other day, I was interviewing a historian of Jamaica origin in the UK. We were looking at African history and the relationship between African history and the European history, and of course, by extension, Western history. And at a point, the historian was telling me that this is a game. Whether we are dying, whether we are at war, whether we are at peace, whether we are talking about economy, it's always a game. And if it is a game, we need to know the rules of the game because there is no way you can win in a game if you don't know the rules. So, anyway, that is just a digression. Now, you talk about something very important now when you were explaining the rules of this game and also how it applies in our lives. Do the players understand these rules? I mean, I'm not talking of, okay, you foul, they give you a yellow card, they give you a red card, but the ulterior psychological effect or the implication of the game you are playing. Do we explain this to the African players, for example?
No, we're not doing enough of it at the moment. We are too driven by the finances, the money side of things, that we don't even care whether they understand the rules or not. You know, when I say we, I'm not one of them. But then, unfortunately, I belong in an industry where I am in the minority. So I'll have to say, yes, we. There is a lot of apathy, there's a lot of negativity around the game of football at the moment because we are not imparting the right kind. Our players have been made to understand that it's only about money. And that in itself is really bad. There are rules. The rules of playing the game as, don't foul, don't go offside, it's gone to throwing, it's gone to corner kicks, is one. But that makes only 25% of the player. As a coach, when you're getting into coaching, when you get into coaching and you want to talk about the coaching, talent identification, scouting and talent identification of coaches, of the youth in your neighborhood, they tell you that 25% of it is the skill set. That he can play ball, he can dribble, he can put the ball between the legs and go colo and all that is only, I would say, 25%. The rest, you've got to have the physical ability. You now have to have the 50%, as far as I'm concerned, is mental. Mental on the pitch, mental off the pitch. Let's assume that you're on the bench and you come in in the 60th minute for the final 30 minutes. What impact are you going to make on the rest of the team when you get in there? Don't just go in there. They brought you in for a purpose. The purpose is for you to change something, either to consolidate a lead that you have or to go and equalize. But you go there and you still start dancing around and you dribble everybody, including yourself. You're not doing yourself any favors. You're not doing your team any favors. So at the end of the day, that third part is the influence and impact that you have as a player in the team. That's very important. People don't see it. They say, but we bought a player, he's 100 million. He should be able to be scoring goals. If he is not having the right impact in the team, then he's not your player. So that's another one. Then the fourth quarter, the fourth 25% is your impact outside the field. You're a player. You don't have the ball at your feet. You're not on the pitch. But who are you as a person? Who are you as a person? Do we teach that? No, we focus on that 25%. And that is why in Africa, that is why we haven't gone to the next level yet. Because on the football scene, for example, we have developed to at the point where we can the skill set of the player, but we haven't developed the other aspects of their mental lives.
All right. I'm going to spend some time here because it is very important for me. I'm not looking at it only as a game of football. I'm looking at it as a game of life. Okay, now the game I was referring to before with Selena Carty, that is the historian I was talking to in UK, was actually the game of chess. And the game of chess is very important. In fact, she was suggesting, no, another person was suggesting that we should introduce our children to the game of chess early. Because there is a lot that is actually going on in there. Now, okay, let's look at it this way. Is it possible that we could take the rules of the game of football, for example, and introduce it in our politics? In that, because we are talking of value here, we are talking about role model, we are talking about team playing. We're not talking about just being able to dribble, but we're also talking about within your dribbling, within your holding the ball, how does it relate to the next person? How does that relate to the other person? Then that is the opponent. How does it relate to the entire objective of the 11 people that are in the field in relation to the other 11 people that are going to play? Because if it is only 11 people, all of you that are playing, it is not the game. Because you cannot play against yourself. You are playing against another person. But in what is the parameters? So I'm trying to understand, because it might look to be very simple, but I think it is complex. Can we transfer that value into the politics, for example, into our life outside the football game, if we understand it?
Football is a game of life. I always say football, if you actually excel in football, you will excel in anything. But I have not seen that person yet. Football is a game of life. If you look at it, you've said it all. Teamwork, team playing, very important. In our politics at the moment, it's about me, I did. My administration will do this, my person will do that. But it is teamwork. It's not only the 11 players that actually make the team. There's the coaches, there's the assistant coaches and everybody, but there's also the bench. You see that bench of reserves. When we were growing up, we would say, oh, he's on the bench. He's not good enough because he was not good enough to start the game. But these people on the bench also have a part to play in the development of the team. When you have the ball, for example, you're playing a game, you're passing the ball around, tick tack, tick tack, tick tack, and then all of a sudden there's the inspiration in you that says, okay, we need to go for the kill now. We have worn them out. You know, there's a style of play for people who understand the game. There's a style of play we call possession football, where you just make sure that you keep the ball. Just keep the ball, just pass it around. Because you're passing it around between your team, the other team is chasing you. Chasing, they're going to get tired. When they get tired, you're now saying, okay, this is now the time to go for the kill. Now let's attack. And then you switch pace. And you start to run faster, and you pass the ball a lot quicker and catch them unawares. And then you score a goal. I mean, it sounds very straightforward. It's not. But you know what I'm trying to say. Now, it is teamwork. And sometimes it requires your bench, not only your coaches, to see that even your reserve players will say, oh, you see, that number 2 is tired. Give the ball to the person who is playing against the opposition number 2, and he'll hit him. It's teamwork. The politics that we play in the world that we live in at the moment is very, very, very egocentric. It's about me. It's about what I can do. Do you know, I tell you what, even in the football politics, which I have been in since 2006, in the football politics, in FIFA level, Football Federation level, there was a time I went to present a proposal on development to a football association president who has been elected to be football association president in his country for 4 years. And I gave him a 5 to 6 year plan. And he looked at it. He's a politician, he never played the game. And he looked at the proposal and said, Tunde, this looks good. When can we have this proposal done? I said, well, we can start implementing from January next year. He calculated, he said, it means that we'll be there for another 2 years of the proposal. But by the time it matures, I'd have left. I said, yes, you would have left. He said, I'm not interested.
That is Nigerian mentality.
I'm not going to give names.
It's okay. I get it.
But I'm like, no. Have you heard the word legacy? He didn't want to know. He basically did not want to know because he felt that, yes, it was a good project, but I have to be in office to be able to enjoy the benefits, in quote, of this fantastic project. And if I'm not in office to enjoy the benefits of it, to reap the benefits of it, then it's not worth doing. Now, how many generations, how many thousands of kids from that country would have benefited from that project that we have done out of because of his single egocentricity? And that is the politics that we play. And that is the same as it is in football, so it is in other spheres of society, other sectors of society. The man in the streets, the minister for sport, for works, or for transport or for road works or whatever, is thinking, I've got to go construct this road. And you got to do it anyhow, as long as I'm the one who goes and commissions it. No, but we need to lay the tarmac very well. We need it to dry up. We need it to set so that, and then it will take another 2 years. Oh, I don't know whether the president will keep me as minister by then. So, you know what? Let's not do it. We either do a shoddy job or don't do the job at all. That's where it starts from. That's where it starts from. And it's a feature. This football thing that we talk about is, like I said, it's a feature of the wider society. And the wider society just needs to change, because we don't seem to take legacy and longevity and the interest of our youth who will benefit from it. You see, this is why the Western world is just that little bit different. Last year in March, April, some silly people concocted an idea of creating what you call the European Super League. The European Super League was supposed to be a big money league that was a breakaway from the Premier League, breakaway from La Liga, breakaway, and form their own tournament, where that tournament will command a minimum, very minimum income for each club of £200 million a year, at the very, very minimum. It will be sponsored and supported by Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. It was backed by big people. And clubs like Manchester United, Chelsea, Manchester City, Juventus, Barcelona, they all signed up. 12 clubs wanted to do the European Super League. And the fans rose up. And the fans came all out and protested against it. That it is ruining the game and the legacy for our youth and for followership of the game, which is supposed to be a community game. This game, this European Super League, is going to take the game away from the community. Manchester United is a community club. You know, there's clubs there's little pubs and all that are diehard Manchester United places in Old Trafford. Chelsea is a Chelsea part of London. It's a clique over there. It's the same in Arsenal. And you're taking it away and commercializing it. And foreigners are just coming to take it over because there's money involved. But then it means that less involvement of the fans, of the community. We don't want it. Yes, we can see victory, we can see trophies and all that, but we don't want it. And I think the whole idea lasted all of 1 week. And one by one, each club was dropping out saying, okay, we've listened to our fans, we don't want to be a part of this anymore. We've listened to our fans, we're not going to do this anymore, until they all dropped out and the idea died. What am I saying here? When we take legacy, what it does for us, what it does for the future of our people, of our youth, of our community, when each community comes together and does well for itself, then the collective community, which becomes the country, becomes good.
It's like the idea of the broom, no? If you pick it only just one, you have no power, you have no influence, you have it cannot go anywhere because you just break it, it's gone.
Yeah.
But if you take all of them put together, even each of them are weak, but they become strong.
Absolutely.
All right. Now we understand the importance of this, but why is the idea not transmitted to the people? Again, we are going to come back to the game. Because it is an important part of the entire process of the game, football. Some people might look at it as a way to make money, which is fine. You can make money from it. But the fundamental idea behind the people, it need to be sold into the mind of the people so they can, because they are fun, no? They love this game, but how can we from there use it as a kind of an instrument to bring goodness, to bring out the spirit of Ubuntu, for example, into the mind of the people, that we have a common objective. Because now, when we begin to dissect it, we see that it actually helped to build the society.
Mm.
The people there in Arsenal or in Manchester are protesting not because they are poor, not because they are not going to get money anymore, but because something is coming to shake the fundamental of that society. You know, there are some people, some experts who are actually looking at the human being, the way that our society function and is formed in relation also to other animals with which we are cohabiting in this world. Some have said that we are where we are today not because we are the strongest, not because we are the most intelligent. Our brain is not even that big compared to other animals in the world, but we have a way of being able to work together across even our ethnic line, across our sex, our gender, our religion, if you like. We are able to build something based on the fundamentals that put us together. So this is where I'm trying to understand, where are we missing it? That in Africa, for example, we don't care about the rules. Because that is why you see politicians siphoning all the money. Because he doesn't care about the rules. He doesn't care about what is going to happen in the next 5, 10 years. You remember the Studio Tinapad project? All this noise, and it was a really fantastic project in Calabar. Do you know that that project has been abandoned now with everything that has been done? Because the people don't care about the legacy. They don't care. Okay, not the people. The politicians do not care about the people. Because if they care, they would have asked the question, these people that were supposed to be working there, where are they now? The money that was supposed to be made, the people that were supposed to be beating their hand on the chest and say, oh, we are the Calabar people. Come and visit us. Look at the Studio Tinapa. They cannot say that anymore. Do we respect them? Because if you respect them, you will do everything possible to make sure that that project doesn't die. So this is the question. Where are we missing it? Help me.
Education and greed. Greed on the part of the politicians, greed on the part of the leadership, and lack of education. Now, when I say education, there's a lot of people who have gone to school. And, especially when you go to Africa, when you go to my darling Nigeria, when you hear the big English that comes out of there, you believe that, there's so many educated people, but how educated really are they? The important thing is now is the time to start to educate ourselves, educate people. And when I say educate people, we're not sending people to the classroom. It's boring, man. We're talking about educating people on the needs, on what is missing, on the missing links of this world, on this kind of example that we gave. In football, for example, there was a time when the team is put together and says, this is your objective. The objective is you have to play the ball, you have to score goals, you have to be very strong and rugged, you have to attack that midfield and make sure that nobody gets in between you guys, you have to provide a spare man, and that man in front, when you swing across to him, he has to connect with his head and score the goal. You have to, this. And in those days, you didn't care who your opposition was. You just concentrate on yourself. And then education came. Football education is coming. We have not even perfected it anywhere near in Nigeria or in Africa. But we want to. And that is the crux behind, for example, as an example, and this is just a digression, the formation of the African Football Scouts and Coaches Association that we have got to educate the African on football. Because these days, what we now have is that major clubs, big clubs, are now educating their players on the need to do certain things, on the need to study the game, on the need to eat well, on the need to stay fit. A lot of our players, even up until now that I'm talking to you, when they get the opportunity, they will get a big mound of banku or pounded yam. All right, and they will eat it like if the end of the world was coming. They will overindulge. And then the very next day, they go to their clubs and they start eating proper. And now education tells them you need to look after yourselves on a daily. A lot of them, when they finish playing, when they're done playing, their lifestyle, you then find out that they suddenly died of a heart attack because they've amassed so much cholesterol in their bodies and all that. There is now education. There is now education. They need to educate the football player on why it's important to know the strength of your opposition. I was the chief scout of the Nigerian Super Eagles for almost 6 years. And I know that when I go and present to the Nigeria Football Federation and say, guys, okay, we want to go and study Croatia because we got to play them in the World Cup. And we need to go and study them and we need to know more about them so that I can put my players in a meeting room and educate them about why we're playing Croatia and why we need to work hard. This guy plays with his left foot. So leave him. Let him do whatever he wants on his right, but make sure he doesn't get the ball on his left because if he unleashes a shot, you're in trouble. Oh, this guy is very weak. So stay back and then he can't run. Push the ball fast and run because you run past him because he hasn't got pace. We educate them. Do you know that for many years, for a good chunk of those 3 years, the people in the Nigerian football authorities did not believe in it. They felt that, no, we've got the players that can do this work. It doesn't matter where they come from. We are Nigeria, we can win. It's not like that, guys. That's why I say education. Now, relating it to, so there is an objective. The objective is you want to win. The strategy is you've got to put together your strategy. This is my top 11 goalkeeper, 4 defenders, 2 midfielders, 4 attackers. Okay, fine. That's fine. That's basic knowledge. And then I personally devised a coinage which I call KTA. KTA means knowledge, tactics, action. Then you have to know everything. You have to have knowledge of yourself, people around you, what it does to them, and even your opposition, your adversary, if you're in a different world. That's one. Then it allows you to form your strategy, which is your tactic. So your knowledge becomes your tactic. You now form a tactic based on the knowledge that you have gathered. And then you can now act. Now, that process we don't have in the politics of Africa, which is why the Tinapa studio fell apart and many others like that, because we don't educate ourselves. Now, what we now need to do, how to get beyond that and break that barrier, is come back to educate ourselves as the end users, so that when we educate ourselves as to what is happening and why it has happened like that, we go back into the faces of the established authorities and ask questions. And ask questions all the time and make them feel the pinch and put them under pressure that, look, guys, we're watching you. We know you're not doing right. Why is it like this? And that is why education is important. When I talk about education, I'm talking about the 3 E's: education, enlightenment, empowerment. Let us use our education to enlighten the world. Let us use that enlightenment to empower ourselves to go. We're not going with placards. We're not going with, we're not going to Lekki Toll Gate or whatever to go and do, the normal protests. We're not striking, but we are going into studios, into surgeries, and we're asking questions that will put these guys on edge to show that, oh my God, we can't just run rhapsody over these guys. They do know what they're talking about. This is the end user. These are the consumers of our governance. And we need to answer them, and we need to provide accounts to them as to our stewardship.
And if we do that, it's going to change. Of course, I'm going to ask you a question that related to your coaching program. That is very important for us. But before we get there, I just want to reinforce what we already agreed on here. That we're talking about the game here, because if we play it well, it is in our favor, in the favor of the society, of our countries in Africa, for example. The reason the country Nigeria is not functioning is because we are not playing the game the way it's supposed to be played. That is why somebody can load the house with money because you are not using it. Why not invest it? Because you cannot invest it because you didn't get it in the right way. You know that it is not right, but you keep doing it. I mean, you look like a stupid person. You look like a child because a child doesn't know the rules. So you just play zigzagly. The game of football is not played zigzagly. You have a clear objective. It's like you are going to the military. You are going to a war. You can't go to the war and expect to win if you are just there shooting at the air. So you must aim at your enemy and shoot, not just shooting at random. What is your coaching program doing to sort of make sure that this line are reinforced in the people so they can play to win at the end of the day?
The important thing is, yes, they've got to play to win, but they've got to play fairly. They've got to play fairly, because if you do things properly, it's seamless. It becomes easy. It's smooth, and there is no problem. And you talk about the ills of governance, where people stash money and all that. Why are they stashing money? They stash money because they have access to it. And they had that kind of access to it. You asked about why they're not investing. They don't see the need to invest because, you see, to those people, they're very dim-sighted. They don't know. They feel that they can go back and get more if they need more. It's there for them to take because nobody is asking them questions. Now, you can see that in football, it doesn't work like that. It's easy. With my coaching program, it's easy because you tell the coaches to tell players to go and start playing. If you score 2 goals and then you relax, which is the lack of investment that you're talking about. Because everything that I do, I relate with football. So in the lack of investment that you talk about, you're talking about the fact that you score 2 goals and then you sit back and you relax because you don't need to do anything. At the end of the day, you'll be surprised. You'll be caught behind. They'll score 1, they'll score 2, they'll score a third, and you lose the game. But obviously, if you go by the principle of the game and you play the game and you move forward and you become ruthless and your attack towards winning, you go for the first goal, you score. You go for the second goal, yeah, why not? And you don't rest on your laurels and you forget every time when you go in at halftime at 3-0 up, you tell yourself that we're 3 goals to the good, but we're going into the second half like if it's 0-0. So we go again. And then you go again, you go again, you go again. Now, when you do all of that, what you're doing basically is you're imbibing in your culture, in your mindset. I'm a mindset person. I build mindsets. And you imbibe in yourself the mindset that I'm not going to rest until it's over. And it's not over until it really, really is over. You look at the referee blows the whistle that it's full time and you've won 4-0. And you look at the referee again to make sure that he's actually blown the whistle to end the game. That is it. So you keep going, you keep going. Our politicians will not, because it came easy They get the money, they amass it, they put it somewhere, and they feel in their minds that there's more to be had. Why should I invest? Why should I bring people into my business? If I put people into my business, that's how they're going to know what I've got. So let me just be spending the one I've got. When it's running low again, I can call Minister A or Chief of Staff B, and he will bring another lot. And therefore, we are not going by the doctrines of the game of football. The game of football is a very noble game, very honorable, because there is defense, there is midfield, there is attack. The rules are clear. The rules are clear such that if you sit back, they catch you, they'll score you. If you sit in the middle, you'll be bouncing the ball from side to side and you will never make progress. And if you go forward and score goals and you have an effective and potent striker, you will score goals. The goals will come. Stick to the rules and it will happen. But in the meantime, from the coach's side, on the bench, you're educating your team, you're educating your players as to why there is the need for you to win this game. You are educating your players on why there is the need for you to play to the rules that you have set for you to win this game. They are the laid down rules by FIFA, fouls, offsides, and all that. Then there are the rules that you as the coach will set for yourself, for your team. Like I have the chief coach of the Super Eagles, Gernot, a very good friend of mine and a mentor. When we play the when we're in the team, he will say to me that he would always tell his players that if a ball is coming to you, if you've got a shot that like a free kick or something, and you're standing in front of the ball, and because the ball is coming, you now do like this. He will drop you. He will substitute you immediately, and you're probably not going to play for him ever again. You're a warrior. You stand to the ball. If it's going to hit you in the face, let it hit you. Let us know that you're a fighter. Now, that is his own rules. So when you have rules, you have the laid down rules and regulations, but you also have your own rules as a coach, which you adhere to and you win. You don't win. And that is the kind of lack of education and enlightenment that is still going on prevalent in our society, even up until this day as we speak. It's not there, and it needs to be there.
Thank you so much for that. Now, I'm asking you too many questions because I see a lot of value in what you are saying. That's fine.
No problem.
Now, I don't know if you have more time. I just want to ask you 2 more, then we'll close. Now, which is your best time that you were actually proud of the Nigerian national team?
My pride of the Nigerian national team was when I was in charge of the Nigerian national team as the first assistant to the head coach. I have seen a lot of stories about and watched a lot of our game leading up to when I got involved, 1994. The 1994 Super Eagles was wonderful. The 1989 Flying Eagles was great. 1996 Olympic winning, wonderful, excellent. But when I was involved, a team that I used my own hands to build, a lot of the players, many of the players became Nigerian nationals who were born in the diaspora and who became Nigerian citizens due to the fact that I approached them and said, come and play for our team. And they came and they played. And we went to the Africa Cup of Nations in 2019 and we won a respectable bronze medal, got to the semi-final. We're very unlucky to lose in the semi-final. So we won 3rd place. That's my team. That was my team. Those were my boys. I remember a lot of them, they don't call me coach. They call me uncle because I was like their football fathers. The Alex Iwobis, the Joe Aribos, the Ola Ainos, the Tyrone Ebuehis, the Semi Ajais, all of them put together, Wilfred and Didi and all that. Those were my boys. I made them. I put them together on behalf of the coach. So that was my team. We did very well. We went to the World Cup in 2018 in Russia. We did respectably well. And we could see that as soon as we were shown the door in December of 2021, it all fell flat. It all fell flat and it didn't go the way Nigerians wanted because we built that team and that team is my favorite.
For that. So what was the secret of that success? What was it, the mindset that you sold into them that made them to succeed to the extent that you wanted?
Camaraderie, unity, solidarity, a determination to actually keep going until we can't go no more. I can't remember. I think we lost 2 games to African opposition in the whole of the 65 games that we played. We lost only 3 games to African opposition. The others, we lost friendly games to England, and then in the World Cup to Croatia and to Argentina. But we only managed to lose 3 games. And we qualified for everything because we were just together. You know, when there's no football, when there's no games going on at this time, we are busy exchanging messages, giving each other encouragement in their respective clubs. Where are they? How do you do? How did you play? Why didn't you play yesterday? Why were you on the bench? What? And we talked even about family, about, oh, you just had a kid. How is Oscar? We know each other very well. There was a unity, there was solidarity in that team. And that was the secret of it. That's what people did not understand. That's what the authorities did not get when they said it was time for Gernot Raw and myself to go, because they felt that the players could operate on their own, and they're not bad players. We're not saying that we put magic in their legs to make them take, but we had a leadership structure that worked with solidarity, with unity, with harmony, with a determination to be resilient and to keep going until we can go no more.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the sacrifice also. Now, how can people connect with you, those who want to sort of get to know you better? I don't know, maybe your website, or I don't know if you have anything you are offering out there. Please use this few moments to do that.
Well, I mean, I've got a website which is www.tunde-talks.com. Tunde-talks.com is my main website. I give talks, I give motivation talks to people on a regular basis. I mentor and I do speeches, keynote addresses and all that. www.tunde-talks.com, and there's a contact page. You can also contact me by email, tunde@tunde-talks.com. That's tunde@tunde-talks.com. Or on Twitter @Tunde Talks. It says Coach Tunde Talks. Is also, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm everywhere. And I'm on LinkedIn as well, you know, as Captain Tunde Adelakun, who is also the captain of the African Football Club, which is a football club of business-minded people who want to take football to the next level in Africa outside of playing. So it encompasses coaches, businessmen, referees, administrators, governors of the game, the African Football Club, and the captain of that club, to the glory of God. And I'm also the president of the African Football Coaches Association, where we're trying to empower coaches. We're trying to make sure that less and less African countries depend on foreigners to come and coach our football, because we can do it better. But we have to show that we can do it better by proving to ourselves that we can do it better, by actually educating ourselves at it. So Tunde@tunde-talks.com is your best bet, really. And then I can now direct whatever query into whatever department of my operations that we can do.
Thank you so much, dear. Today, I appreciate that. I really do. Now, to conclude the conversation, what would be your final thought here, or a kind of a line that you feel is important to reinforce? Of course, you can see that I'm not a football expert, but I just like the game of it, no, the rules of the game. So I try to apply it in our daily life, because I think we can, because I think it's a game of life. like you also said. So how would you conclude it? Please go.
Right. Very simple. I always conclude my talks by saying to people, have you ever seen a situation where footballers play backward, like step back, play the ball back, and are reversing? No. Football is a forward game. We go forward all the time. As I'm going forward, they're coming forward. The opposition is coming forward, but to them as well, they're going forward. They're not going backward. Nobody makes progress by going backward. The only way you can make progress, the only way by which you can be a winner in life is by going forward. And when it's time for you to go forward, to go for the kill, face forward. Forget what's at the back.
I wish I could hold the hand of time, so we'll just talk forever. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening and talk to you in the next episode.